We got 5 more questions. These are the medium duration responses to the Instagram questions that we got a couple weeks back on Saturday.
All right, 4 minutes starting after I read the question. What injuries come back most in individual or group programming that you see the most, and why? Go.
All right, so the question in and of itself in individual or group programming, I'm assuming specific to the sport of CrossFit, because I don't see repetitive overuse issues in the same place if I'm writing an individual program for a runner, a jiu-jitsu practitioner, a weightlifter, and a CrossFitter. Like each different sport is going to create a different subset of stressors, and generally people fall into bell curves and create common issues. The most common issues that I've seen, if we're talking about group or individual programming for CrossFit, and if we're not talking like serious injuries would be slap tears in the shoulder girdle, and most experts of the shoulder joint or experts in gymnastics will say it's from doing too much kipping or doing kipping without the appropriate movement quality and strength required at the end range to be able to snap into the bottom of a kip. From an overuse perspective, I see a lot of tendonitis in the patella tendons. I see a ton of medial epicondylitis. That's a golfer, tennis elbow. Yeah, is the term people use on a regular basis. I see a lot of jammed necks and back tweaks. So the jammed necks generally come from kipping handstand push-up volume, and the back tweaks I have found come most frequently from pairing loaded front rack position and then loaded pulling back to back. And that could also be like thrusters and pistols and power snatches, or deadlifts and thrusters. That combination of things generally causes issues in certain people with bad hip flexion mechanics or an inability to extend the spine against a deep flexed hip. What other issues? I mean, obviously the Achilles ruptures are relatively common when people are doing rebounding. I think that just comes from a lack of plyometric work in the training, a lack of movement work and tissue work on dorsiflexion mechanics and hip mechanics, or just in powerful people in general that are rebounding really fast under high levels of stress, where you can't really pay attention to the local stressors and you're just kind of bypassing them until all of a sudden something in the kinetic chain is like, bam, you got to stop this because it's just becoming overwhelming to the system. So I think those are probably the most common injuries, pathologies that we see on a regular basis. What else? Can you have any that you could add to that? I think that kind of covers
what tears put itself on the map.
Yeah.
That's not something that we've seen over time.
Yeah, no, I mean, ring dips, I have seen ring dips cause a fair number of pec issues in the past, but I think this year it was more just the speed of the workout, what it was paired with, and the fact that they haven't been tested since 2014. So people weren't training them in the same level of volume that was required to sustain that at that level of intensity. So, yeah, I think that kind of covers it.
Cool.
Max, can you skip this?
Yeah.
Well done. 23 seconds left. That might be a record. All right, question number 7. For me and many others, I train by myself, and sometimes it gets damn hard to keep pushing through the competitor's style program with no one there pushing you. What would be a couple things for solo trainers to keep in mind to get the same stimulus as a training partner, or just having more people around to help push through? Go.
All right. The first thing is you can't get the same stimulus by yourself that you can get in an environment. The environmental stressors just change how your body responds. There's other people to look at you. There's insecurity. There's fear. There's more noise. You're out of control. There's judges. Like, you can't really simulate all of that stuff. So the question is, what are the training adaptations that you can get by training yourself. Like, you can develop really high levels of self-awareness with regards to what your fatigue systems feel like before your system starts to break down. You can learn how to push yourself independent of any external environmental adrenaline that comes with competition. You can spend the time to, you get into the middle of a workout, something feels off. You're going to be cognizant enough to stop, go back, work on it, go back, refine, restart the workout. Whereas if you have other people, that doesn't really happen. You can't just be like, hey, everybody, let's stop.
Yeah.
So there are things that are really valuable to train by yourself. Then, conversely, there are things that you have to get from an environment, and some of that is just competing. So if you don't have that, find a community of people, or find a free blog that's out there that has people posting scores that are relevant to where you are in your current fitness level. So if you're a master's athlete, find a master's blog that has people listing master's workout scores. Find if you're a teen, go and test workouts from the games, from teen divisions, and make sure that you're pushing yourself, because then you at least know what the people from your demographic are capable of doing. But I think the most simple and elegant solution to this problem is, every once in a while, maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, get out of your environment and go train with people. It will give you a context in your own training when you go back home. If the last time you were training with other people, you got your ass kicked, you go back to your cave, you'll have a little bit more fire and aggression and determination if you're a true competitor, because you really hated that experience of losing and having to go back home to work on something. And you can, go out and you can kind of test your fitness against other people. So find a distribution of training that makes sense, where you're training with a group of people that are, in the realm of where you want to be as an athlete, and then by yourself, and make sure that your sessions are focused. If your focus of your training when you're by yourself is to get the maximum level of physical output in that training session, that's almost impossible to do by yourself, because the environment and the competition in general is the thing that pulls that level of intensity out of us. So you just got to find that. You got to find a place to go. You got to find a community of people you like, and get out of your comfort zone.
Cool. New record. All right, next question. As a coach, each programmed workout has an intended stimulus and intended goal or result as a training tool. Much emphasis has been placed recently on mentality in the sport of CrossFit. Do you and the training think tank coaches specify the goals of each training piece for your athletes to better grasp their mentality, or is the mental game elucidated in a different way? I'm looking up elucidated. Big word.
You got to start the clock too.
And go.
Yeah. Man, mental training has become like a buzzword that it just bothers me.
I'm over it.
Yeah, I'm over it is a good way to put it. There is no separation of your body and your mind. When you're in the middle of a workout, it's hard to know, you're starting to get hot and sweaty and your breathing gets out of control and your heart rate comes through the roof. It's very hard to know if all the thoughts that are in your mind that are saying, hey, you should put this down, you're going to die, are real, or if your body is actually going to die. So trying to separate those two things and say, oh, my mind held me back, my body can keep going, is kind of silly. You could potentially, in a training environment, kill yourself. I mean, people go into cardiac arrest doing strongman training. People have died doing endurance training. It is a possibility under really high levels of exertion to put your bodily systems into catastrophic failure. So trying to just say, oh, mental training, it's all about the mental training, it's all about discipline, is it's kind of annoying to me. Now, there is mental components to the sport. You have to understand, you got to be able in the sport to look at a workout and say, okay, where is this workout going to challenge me? So I can create my pace model. Do I need to break this up? What approximate pace do I need to hold on a rower in this type of a structure? How fast can I run? What does it feel like when I'm running, when I need to throttle back, when I need to go faster? So I think of it all as just one big process of the development of self-awareness. And in this sport, that self-awareness includes all the sub-disciplines of the sport: running, swimming, traditional CrossFit-based workouts, gymnastics, agility and change of direction, and everything in between. It takes into consideration your nutrition, your internal health markers. It takes into consideration how you deal with posturing in the warm-up areas. It takes into consideration how you warm up, how you cool down, what your recovery practices are. So trying to label one of those things, mentality and training, and separating those two is silly. It's all one thing. If you want to get better at something, you need a plan that continues to take the lowest hanging fruit. Like, there's no need in getting more complicated than you need for your own training. Take the lowest and most easy thing that's holding you back as an athlete and take that. Now, what you're hearing, I think why you hear that on a regular basis, is the cream of the crop. The top people, the people who are interviews all the time, the winners, are basically saying that self-doubt was holding them back before. Yeah, well, that's the last thing that is going, that's the last thing you got to work on as an athlete, right? Like, everything else is already taken care of, but when you're giving that advice to regular Joes, it's just, it's silly. Yeah. And I spit on myself.
It's a passionate topic.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. Great question.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 40 seconds left. You crushed that one. Within this window, I have something I want to add to it. What about the explanation of the training goal for that session? So,
sorry, I definitely missed out on that portion of the question. Can you just stop the timer? Because I don't know if I can do that in 20 seconds.
Let's expand on that one.
Okay. Yes, I do that. And again, it's graded. It's graded in its complexity to the athlete. So with Noah or Travis, their level of detail with regards to their intentional focus might be way higher, and it might be every single session. Mm-hmm. But other people, they might not get through 3 consecutive weeks of training without missing sessions. Mm-hmm. So trying to overload their system with more things to focus on is silly. I'm like, hey, for the next 3 weeks, do all your training. That's it. Like, I don't need you to focus on whether your right foot is here or your left foot is here, your hand is here. Like, just show up. So the focus needs to be selected appropriately to the person. Not, hey, Noah focuses on this, so now every athlete I coach needs to focus on that too in their session. Like, again, it's just give them the dose and the focus that they need to get better at what they need to get at. So, yeah.
Cool. We still have 25 seconds left.
It's paused. I was wondering what you were smirking about. I was like, did I spit on myself again?
No, we're laughing. You said doo-doo.
Yeah, I do.
And we're childish, so it's really funny.
You guys communicated that to each other without even looking at one another?
We're same wavelength. All right. Question 9. You need a second. I need a second.
I'm good.
All right. Oh, shit.
I feel like you give him a timer now.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I should put you on a 30-second timer.
I'm laughing so hard.
Yeah.
Okay. Started. Why does following the strength programming cycle...
You can't fuck me over. You got to answer your question. Ask your question first and then give me my 4 minutes.
I make the rules. Why does following a strength programming cycle inhibit fat loss if nutrition is set for fat loss macros? Go. Do I need to ask it again?
No, I got the question. I honestly I don't want to be offensive in the answer, but it doesn't. There are people that follow strength programs that are just strength programs that are 5% body fat, who are shredded and lean. Again, I think this just comes down to there is an over reduction in what I've seen in the market. We take the human body, the human systems, the human mind, the bioenergetics of a system and the ability to burn fat and build muscle, and we reduce them down to like a formula. This is how much you weigh, and this is how much you have to eat, and this is what you do for training. And then anytime that doesn't make progress, there's something you're doing wrong. You have metabolic dysfunction. You have thyroid issue. The problem in the first place is the fact that we're over reducing them. There is a complex subset of variables that goes into getting somebody lean. There are hormones, little things that I don't think are ever talked about, like belief. Like Bruce Lipton, he wrote Biology of Belief, and he talks about circumstances that happen are passed through a filter in your psychology. And if you're thinking about something in a positive way, then it's going to have a different cascade effect on your internal environment than if you're thinking about things in a negative way. So I don't know if there's any research on this in food behavior in general, but if somebody's thinking, I'm a fat piece of shit every time they're eating a brownie versus somebody else saying, I'm fueling my muscles post-workout, that could potentially have a dramatic impact on what their stress hormone profile looks like in their internal blood chemistry at the time of digestion. But no one's ever talking about that. We're always trying to reduce it down to like, here's how it works, this is how it works, this is how it works for all people. If the basics aren't working for you, and the basics work for a huge portion of the bell curve, which is, I think, why the basics are running the fitness industry, is because for most people, just thinking about it that simply will work, and it's enough because they don't want to go any farther than that. But if it's not working for you, and you're following a strength program and not leaning out, you just need to try different things, and they're probably going to be more complicated. They might involve getting your blood work checked. They might involve what you're doing on a day-to-day activity level. They might involve changing what your strength work looks like. Maybe your strength work is not eliciting enough of a hormonal response because you're too weak and your nervous system's not developed enough to put enough loading into your system to stress it to create the anabolic effect that you're looking for. You got to be able to ask more complicated questions if things aren't working for you. And the problem, I think, for a lot of people that are in that position is that a lot of the experts that are out there are saying the simple things in more complicated ways. So like, it could be just, simple macros, or we have like, this is the scientifically backed way to distribute, how much energy you're taking in the system and how much and I'm like, you're saying the same thing. Like you're saying how much you're eating and how much you're burning and training, and that person's saying the same thing. So, I think the best way to answer that is just seek an alternative way at looking at the human body if what you're doing is not giving you the results that you want.
I feel like that covers a lot of it. Not just why am I not losing fat while on a strength cycle. I feel like that can be applied to any training.
Yeah.
Time's up on me.
I'm gonna say that I got that within the time frame. Yeah, it is one of the things that I want to make sure that as we build this brand, as we continue to build media, is if what you're doing is working, then you don't need to listen to anything that I am having to say, right? Like just keep doing what's working for you. If you're happy with what you're doing and you're making progress, keep doing it. If you're not, you need to find a solution to it, or you need to make peace with the fact that what you imagine for your future is not going to come to fruition, and you need to change your goals. So I don't know if that's a negative message, but I think for me it's a fundamental truth about just the complexity of the human system in general.
Cool. All right. Question number 10. I'd be interested in Max's ideal format for regionals going forward. Best way to get the best athletes at the games in the fairest manner. For example, eliminating the debate that there are in fact weaker regions, meaning we don't have a true representation of the top 40 at the games. It's a good question.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think I'm an expert enough to answer the question because I don't have enough contact with the governing body. That was a burp. Right into the mic. Yeah, right into the mic. Nice burp in the mic.
Was that what do you call it? Never mind.
Hold on, pause this. I need some seconds back. No.
Let me know when you've gathered your thoughts.
No, I'm good.
Pause.
I'm good. There can be an argument made that the CrossFit Games athletes would be different if I took the run, swim, run, the obstacle course, the max snatch, and the cyclocross event, and one other from the games, and I made that the open. We might have 35 of the CrossFit Games athletes not even there. Now, the people you probably would have there would be like Matt Fraser, right? Like, so the best of the best, according to the current testing structure, is winning, which is what they say the intention of the testing structure is in the first place, that it is a cream will rise to the top test according to all of the previous testing that came in the stages before it. They're only concerned about getting the top of the top. Now, some of the questions I might ask if I were, privy to be in that discussion, I was like, well, if we're talking about the development of a sport long term and we want to create, media threats, competition that can challenge the people at the top, we want to create a testing body that has some level of stability so people know what they're training for and know what they're trying to do, and that they can repeatedly show that they belong in the top. And generally, that's a very small number of people. I remember I ran statistics like in 2000, I think I was doing camps in 2014 or 13, and there were only like 8 males or 7 males and 9 females. I don't remember the numbers that were 3 times repeat games athletes, which is a very small number according to the whole field. So I don't know what an ideal testing format would look like because I don't know exactly what they're looking for. I think an argument could also be made that the testing structure in the CrossFit Games is potentially not testing what CrossFit's definition of fitness is. But those are arguments that what's the point of even having that argument? The way I look at it is like, it's a sport and this is what's happening on a regular basis. And the goal of the sport is to find the one person that passes through every stage of development, every stage of testing, and gets to the top of the podium. So according to what they want to do, they're doing it perfectly. There's no flaws in that system. There's no contradictions that you need to worry about. I would like to see potentially more in-person stuff if it's going to be a professional and legitimized sport where we know that people are being judged in their, if there's an open, okay, there's an open, but then there's maybe 2 stages before the games. Just because I saw a lot of people at regionals, maybe I'm being unfair and they're just not great performers, but it's very hard to believe that they would just be able to do the things they did in the open and then show up and be the athletes they were on game day at regionals. Maybe they're sick or something's going on, but it seems like there's a pretty high number of them. So I would potentially like to see that. I'd like to see the regionals compressed so there's maybe only 2 or 3 of them instead of 8 all around. I think that would be more exciting to watch, but I'm not an event planner. I don't, yeah. Damn, I got cut off. Oh. I lost. Anyways, I think they're doing a really good job. And I think maybe earlier in my career and being involved in CrossFit, early on, I was potentially a little bit more critical, but I don't think I really understood what it takes to put on an event. I mean, the amount of resources that they have available to put that on and make sure everything's time-oriented so that the spectators can watch, it's a pretty amazing thing that they do. So I'd be like the peanut gallery, just fucking throwing criticism from a completely uneducated perspective. I train athletes and that's what I do. And I'll try to coach other coaches to be able to do that. And I coach regular people for different goals, but I don't put on events. So I don't really have anything I could add to what they're already doing.
Cool. That's it, man.
So the last one I failed.
Yep.
Well, whatever. 9 out of 10 is a good winning percentage. All right, so that's the last questions in the intermediate length ones. We got one more content piece that we're going to go in depth. I think it was 2 questions that we kind of put into one video that were just about one idea specifically.
Cool. Woo!